Good morning, Jays fans. It's kind of game day. It is exhibition day. It is the first unofficial game of the season. Tonight, the Jays will host Iowa State, a familiar foe, in the no longer secret scrimmage series, which is opening up this year in Omaha, and presumptively, if they haven't officially announced it already, will be taking place in Ames next year. This is a continuing series. We've been secret scrimmaging against them for quite a while. Otzelberger is, of course, connected to Mac, so they've been hosting this scrimmage series for at least for 3 or 4 years now, I think. I don't know if we've been with Iowa State before that, but I wanted to put out a nice little morning of, hopefully you have enough time to listen to this before the game, bit of stupid content, and that's my 10 bold predictions for this Jays season. So I'm going to go through sort of a chronological series of predictions of things that I think might happen this season. Some bold predictions, kind of. So number one, and the one that actually gave me the inspiration to do this, I suppose, is that Huss will be the primary coach for one of these exhibitions or both. So that's sort of an interesting thing, right? Because we know that Mac is in his last year or 2 or 3 at the most. And I don't think anyone would be terribly surprised if it did end after this year. We know that Huss has been leading most of the summer practices. He's been calling, it sounds like, all of the offense so far. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one standing next to the bench either tonight or next week. I don't know, because it's a new roster. It's a lot of turnover. Mac probably wants to get comfortable with them. But I think there's been a concerted effort to get Huss involved as if he was a head coach all summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if that carries over tonight, especially considering we're playing Iowa State again in about a month. And he might want to maybe give him a different look this time. Maybe have as little repeated between these 2 games as possible. Number 2, Hudson Greer scores 15 or more points in a game this season. That's not a super crazy thing to say. It's really just going to be, I think, a matter of if he gets the minutes to do so. But I think there will be, and I'm not even necessarily saying it's going to be one of these runaway early season games where he gets 20 minutes against South Dakota or Maryland Eastern Shore or whatever. I think it could be in a somewhat big game. He's got so much potential. Like I think we are losing some of these guys in the shuffle just because of how much we've brought in. But if it was any other year, I'm thinking back to like 2017, 2018 when we brought in Balak, Tyshawn Alexander, like some of these guys that were not super heralded recruits, but we were really excited to see them. Like, this would have been a big deal back then. And it still should be, because he's got loads of talent. And I would not be surprised to see him in a Big East game this year, like something like Xavier or something like that. Just go off a little bit and ride the hot hand with him. So that would not surprise me at all. Number 3 prediction for this year is the Vegas curse lives on. We go 1-2 in Vegas. I actually like us to beat Baylor. I think we are constructed well to beat that team. I think Iowa State, when they're playing at full bore, is a really tough matchup for us. They're long, they play good defense, and they're smart offensively. And then just a weird 1-1 game where we draw a probably better than we should team and lose there. We don't win in Vegas. We know this. It doesn't feel like a bold prediction to say that, but we're probably going to be We'll be favored, I assume, to win the Baylor game. If you pulled it right now, maybe we're not, because I think Ken Pom was pretty high on Baylor compared to us, which I do not agree with. I don't think they have a great roster. Iowa State, I assume we won't be favored to beat in a neutral site game, but yeah, it could be by then. So the Vegas curse lives on, and we go 1-2 there, as it seems to be at best every time we go play out there. Prediction number 4, 8 different players appear in the starting lineup at some point this season. So that's sort of, I'm going to kind of cop out on this one and not give who those players are going to be or why they all end up in the starting lineup, because obviously there's injuries that could happen, and with us it always seems to, but I just think there's enough variation on the roster this year, and there's enough chances for us to play matchups where I think we're going to see a few more different looks than we're used to. It's not going to be like the 23-24 season where it felt like we had the same starting five every single game, and we very well might have. Prediction number 5, and this one I think is a bit of a bold one. It's that Austin Swartz pops up way more than anyone's expecting. So when we brought him in, I don't think people were expecting him to play anything more than dust-up minutes this year, and I think the majority of us still aren't. But the word out of practice is they like him as a defensive on-ball guard who has some three-point range, and that is sort of his prototype. Like he was a heralded recruit. Nothing worked at Miami last year, so it's questionable how much of it was he didn't really find the floor with them early in the season, and then even when he did, he didn't play great. How much of it is he is bad versus there was a bad team around him, and how much of Greg's developmental power do we think could get forced into him in one off season? But supposedly he's been looking okay in practices. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being sort of a backup to Graves at the point guard position instead of Ty. I think the way Ty ended his season last year, and I think there's a couple Jays who fit this bill, makes you sort of forget that he had a really, 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 really not good year before that. And some of it's just he's a freshman and it's adjusting, and he might very well start this season the way he ended last season, looking pretty competent out there. But I would assume Swartz is a little further ahead at this point. And he's not really a point guard like Ty, but we don't seem to ever really care about that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing Swartz as the regular backup to Graves. I think we'll also see some Dix handling the ball. I think we could see Zugic handling the ball. But I'm getting the sense he's going to be more important than people think this year. On that note, bold prediction number 6, Nick Graves is a top 3 point guard in the Big East. It's basically, for me, a question of if he plays better than Malik Mack this year, because I think Demery, although he's not technically a point guard for UConn, is going to play there, and he's going to be one of the better players in the conference. Jason Edwards for Providence, another not really a point guard, but a ball dominant guard. He's going to be bringing the ball up for them, I assume. So I'd put him behind those two and ahead of Malik Mack and St. John's anonymous point guard, because they don't seem to have any idea what to do with that position. Graves is really interesting because, again, he's one of those guys where any other year I think we would be really excited. He's got a very different game than we're accustomed to bringing in, but it's more of what he was forced into doing at Charlotte. They were a very bad team. They had a very bad offense. They did not move the ball well. He drew a lot of free throws. He scored a lot. He didn't pass a lot. But that was kind of the way they did things. They got to the line. They were very slow tempo. He's smart. He's efficient. He's a decent shooter. It's really one of those things where it was he should have been a higher regarded transfer addition than he was. And sort of the question was, is his prototype really point guard, or is it off the ball, where now the reports coming out of practice are that he's very comfortable in the point guard position. He's not turning the ball over. He's passing well. He's running the offense. And if that's true and he can keep the sort of shooting efficiency that he did even on a bad Charlotte offense and get to the free throw line sometimes, which is not something we do a ton, I think he could have a really good season. And if he's running one of what should be one of the top 10 to 15 most efficient offenses in the country, he's going to look pretty good while doing it. So I'm a little bullish on Nick Graves this year. Number 7, the Jays lose no more than one home game. So I think the schedule sets up nicely for this year. Currently on Torvik, we are favored to win every home game. I don't know if that'll hold, right, if St. John's or UConn, depending on where we are in relation to them come game time. Our non-conference schedule at home is certainly favorable. Our 2 biggest non-con games are on the road with Nebraska and Gonzaga. I do think we will handle Kansas State at home without much difficulty, but you never know. So it's really a question of, do we win at least one of the St. John's or UConn games and hold serve in all the other ones? A lot of big Saturday games, right? And sometimes, I've had this theory before that sometimes I think the home court advantage actually plays better on the sort of weeknight games, especially at a place like Creighton where we still sell those games out for the most part, right? Maybe not full sellouts, but we're getting 16-5 plus, right? I almost think that is more jarring for an opposing player in the middle of a school week, taking the flight out, having to play in that environment when they're not sort of expecting it, I suppose, rather than on the big Saturday game where everyone's revved up for it. You're getting a hostile crowd, so it's not really a shock when it's there. That said, we do Saturday environments pretty well, and they're lining up all the promotions and stuff this year, and aside from UConn being the pink out game, which I think is a lapse in judgment, but I have conflicting feelings about it because the pink out's a big deal for me. The rest seem to make sense. Dollar beer night for Georgetown. I get it. That's kind of the old way we used to do things, where it was used as a draw to fill the arena for a lesser game. Once you use it for UConn, I feel like there's no going back, right? Like, you have to keep it for a big game every year. I get it. I get why administratively it doesn't make sense to do, but from the fan perspective, it's going to be a letdown if every year it's Georgetown or Providence or Seton Hall or something like that. But yeah, lose no more than one home game, so that requires either winning both of St. John's and UConn at home, which wouldn't surprise me, and dropping like a Marquette or a Villanova or a Providence somewhere, like on one of those more random games. I could see that happening. But hey, it's meant to be a bold prediction for a reason. The odds certainly don't favor this happening, but it also, I don't think, would surprise anyone if it does. Number 8, the Big East top 3 is just the Big East top 3. And what I mean by that is it's St. John's, UConn, and Creighton in some order. And you're sitting there saying, Chim, I thought, this was supposed to be bold predictions for the season. And, sometimes the bold prediction in college sports is that things just go exactly the way they're supposed to go. Because that doesn't happen very often. So, yes, it seems like there's a giant gap between those 3 and the rest, or at least the top 2 and then us and the rest, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that seems to be the media perception. I think sometimes the most surprising things are that just everything goes exactly the way it's supposed to go. We are the top 3. Marquette and Providence are the next 2. One of Villanova, Georgetown, Butler, maybe Xavier overachieves slightly and is in the bubble conversation into late February, but it's just the top 3. And I'm not necessarily saying what order it'd be in, but yeah. So the bold prediction number 8, the Big East top 3, is actually just St. John's, Connecticut, and Creighton. Bold prediction number 9, the 6th fall of Creighton. It's not one I feel proud making because these hurt seemingly more and more every time. But Creighton will, my bold prediction number 9, Creighton will again fall in the Big East title game for the 6th time, moving Mac's record in that game to 0-6. I don't necessarily think it's not a letdown in the sense that it's going to be a game you're supposed to win. Because again, I think we will beat UConn in the semi and lose to St. John's in the final. It's a home game for them. It really is now. It never was before because they never cared before, but now that they do, yeah, it's tough to win in that environment. You're going in there with even if you're an evenly powered team with them, you're probably going in there with a 30 to 35% chance to win, right? So that's bold prediction number 9, is that we get to the Big East final again and lose. Number 10, on the brighter side, we'll end it here. Bold prediction number 10. We reach the Elite 8 and we only face one higher seed when doing so. So the bold prediction is that everything kind of falls into place again the way it did in 2023, where all of a sudden it feels like the path is there. And I'm not saying anything about maybe going beyond the Elite 8. I'm just predicting we get there by beating, what would it be? By beating an 11, a 3, and a 7. That's the progression. And whoever we face in the Elite 8, who knows? Whatever could happen there. But that's my bold prediction for this team, is the offense really starts humming by the end of the season. We've figured out just enough on the defensive end to make us dangerous, and we get a little help with the matchups and the seeding, and we get through to the Elite 8 again. What happens from there? Well, that's what we're here this season to find out. So there's 10 bold predictions for the 2025-2026 Creighton Blue Jays men's basketball season. I'm Dr. Chim Richards. I'll be back with Mr. Dennis at some point in the near future. and we'll have another season together, another season of Blue Jay basketball at near the top of the Big East Conference.